Hi, pet lovers. So I had to update my resume today, and I think I'll go over why I had to update my resume today in a different video. But it got me thinking about all the stuff that's on my resume. And I thought this would be a great way to think out loud about all the things I've done as a veterinarian. And my father always told me that I should be writing a book about all the stuff I've done. And that would be a great idea. But a lot of times I can't even remember all the stuff I've done. But looking at my resume, it really sparked um, some memories. And, back before I was in vet school, um, I was at Arizona State University, and I wanted to be a veterinarian all my life. And so I was in the pre-vet program in the agricultural college. And I was so um, disappointed in the curriculum because I was taking classes like how to butcher a hog and what the cuts of meat were. And I was like, what am I doing in here? This is not for me. And so I wanted to be in medicine, so I jumped over to the nursing college and gave that a try. And after one semester, I was like, wait a minute, I want to be the boss. I don't want to work for someone else. So I went back over to the pre-vet program, but did it through a zoology degree and just got what I needed to get without learning about the cuts of meat from um, a hog or a bull. So I did that and applied to vet school. And back in that day, and I'm not sure if they still do it, Arizona did not have a vet school. They do now, but they didn't back then because this was like 45 years ago. So there was a program where we could apply to three different out of state vet schools and pay in state tuition because they had a program where we would have to come back to our state and practice to repay our loan. And so I applied to Colorado State University Veterinary School with that under that program. And I got on the list of potential candidates, and there were a lot of them. And they only chose three for that class for Colorado State University, and I did not get chosen on the first round. But the universe has always worked for me, and I got a call that someone had turned down their position, and I got it. I was in. So I went to Colorado State University Vet School, and the rest is history. So 4 years of veterinary school. After doing 5 years of undergraduate at ASU, I did 4 years of vet school at Colorado State University. And we had summers off back in the day. I'm not sure they have that anymore. I think people take different blocks of time off, or vet students take different blocks of time off. But we had summers off. And I worked during the summer, and I also worked during the year too to make money to pay for vet school. And I did things like I was a cocktail waitress. That's how I met my first husband. And I had a job one summer um, for an agricultural business inspecting cornfields for bugs. And I had a truck with an ATV in the back, and I would drive to farms, and I would unload my ATV and ride out to their fields, their big cornfields. And then I would get off the ATV and I would literally walk through the cornfield and count the larvae, the corn borer larvae on the corn plants. And then I'd write up a report so that the farmers would know how their crop was doing. And what I didn't know at the time is they were using crop dusters to spray pesticides on their fields. And I was going in after the pesticide was sprayed, inspecting the plants, and I'm finding areas where the crop duster didn't hit. So they'd have to have the crop duster go back. But I was exposed to a lot of pesticides back then unknowingly, because I wasn't aware that they were actually doing that. So that was an interesting job. And fortunately, I got fired, which was unfortunate back then because I was a little traumatized by being fired because, that's a horrible thing. But the universe works for me and didn't want me to exposed to all those pesticides. So I got fired for being a renegade because I drove fast and I wore skimpy clothes running through those cornfields, and the farmers' wives did not like me. So I got canned, which was just fine. And it wouldn't be the first time or the last time I get fired from a job. And I might tell you about that with these other ones. So then, after I graduated from vet school in 1990, I got my first job in Boise, Idaho at All Pet Complex. And this was a great job because it had three other seasoned vets in the practice, and I learned a lot. And my marriage started going bad, and I took another position in town. And that position was with one of the very first pre-Banfield hospitals. It was when Banfield was just kind of starting out, getting their footing, and they had these little franchise hospitals. And I took a job at one called Family Pet Wellness Clinic within a PetSmart. And that was one of the first ones. And I remember them building the actual clinic within the PetSmart. And we would do vaccine clinics in the aisles of the store to get people knowing we were coming. And I saw all kinds of patients, and I was the only vet there. So it was me and the technicians, and we did a lot of stuff. So I took care of everything coming in the door all by myself. After my first job working with the other doctors, I didn't have anyone to fall back on my second job. And that was in Boise, Idaho also. And then I got a divorce and I left, and I went back to Phoenix because I had to repay my debt for vet school. I was kind of avoiding that and procrastinating, but I finally decided that I needed to come back and pay my debt off. So I came back to Phoenix and took a job at Phoenix West Animal Hospital in South Phoenix. And that was interesting. This was another multi-doctor practice, and it was busy, and it was South Phoenix, and the clientele, it was low to middle income. We got held up a couple times, so people would come in and try to rob us. So it was a little bit dangerous. But I managed to stick around for a few years there. And, when I give people my resume, it's interesting because they say, why is there so many jobs on here? And I'm like, hey, I just kept improving and improving and improving. It's not like I left for no reason. I left for a better position and better pay and better place, and just all around better things kept happening to me. So when I left Phoenix, the Phoenix West Animal Hospital, it was because I bought my own practice. So I bought a little practice in a strip mall in Phoenix called Pet Professionals. And in that time, I I ran the practice by myself, and did all the financials, and payroll and all that. And I was the only doctor, and I had the hospital, which was a full service hospital. I had boarding and I had grooming, and it was a 3,000 square foot hospital. And I thought I could do it all. And after 4 or 5 years and two more kids, um, when I got pregnant with when I was ready to give birth to my fourth kid, um, I decided that I couldn't do everything anymore. I just could not do it, because owning a practice is 24/7. You don't, there is, when there's a problem, you're responsible all the time. So instead of trying to hire an associate, I sold that practice after about 5 years, because I was like, I'm done. I had two little kids and I was just done. Um, so then, um, when I sold the practice, I was like, well, I still need to work, so I got to do something. So then I became a relief veterinarian. And a relief veterinarian is a vet that is hired as a subcontractor in hospitals to do whatever they need to do. And I had, some regular gigs, and I advertised in the veterinary newsletter. And so when hospitals needed me to fill in for someone when a vet went on vacation or had to get surgery for themselves and were going to be out for a while, they'd hire me to come in and do their job. And so I did that. I was a relief vet, and that led into a full-time position at one of the hospitals that I relieved at. So then I became a veterinarian for Peoria Animal Hospital in Peoria, Arizona, and was a regular, kind of a regular part-time vet there. And that was another full-time hospital, full service hospital. So I've always done all the medicine and surgery for the small animals, for dogs and cats and exotic animals. So medicine as well as surgery. And backing up a little bit, when I first started practice at my first hospital, we didn't have specialists. There were no specialists to refer to. I mean, maybe Dr. Jones down the street liked to do knee surgery, so we'd send them over to him. But there were no specialists. Actually, there was one. There was one specialist in Boise, Idaho when I first got out of school, and that was a ophthalmologist from Phoenix that would come to Boise once a month and see patients. That was specialty medicine back then. So we literally had to do everything ourselves. So, if we had surgeries come in, we just found someone that had done the surgery before and would help us. And if there was nobody around and the surgery needed to be done, we got the book out. We looked at all the information. There was no internet back there. I mean, we literally had to get the books out and read the books, and read how to do the surgery and do the surgery, whatever it was. And I would have the book open on a little stool in the surgery suite, because you're sterile and you can't touch it. So you'd have it open at the page, and you would just do the surgery. And it was either that or the pet was not going to get the procedure done. And these were not elective procedures. And going back to that first practice where, we had no specialists back then, I also did wildlife medicine, which is interesting. So I would see eagles and hawks and falcons for the Fish and Game Department. And the federal government actually is in charge of the eagles, because they're a protected species. So if I got an eagle in, I had to notify the government, the federal government. But the Fish and Game Department found out that I was seeing wildlife, and they were thrilled. And they gave me a rehab permit to rehabilitate the wildlife that I had either helped medically or done surgery on. And then I would rehab them. And I really didn't want to do the rehab, but they were like, yeah, there's no one else here doing it. So we're giving you the permit so you can at least take care of the animals until we can find someone. And I learned a lot of orthopedic procedures back when I was right out of school doing the wildlife, because I would fix broken wings on eagles and hawks and falcons and broken legs on owls. They break their legs all the time for some reason. So I'd be fixing broken legs and broken wings, doing orthopedic surgery with pins and wires and tubing to fix these guys up. That was interesting. So I also saw the foxes and raccoons and skunks and songbirds and squirrels and anything else that came in. I would see it. I saw reptiles, snakes, lizards. I saw like a little, I don't know if it was a caiman or a little alligator thing. Had to do surgery on him for a blockage. I mean, I saw all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. That was a fun time. All right, let's see. So I went from being a relief vet. That was back in the early 2000s. And then I got a job at a kind of it wasn't a corporate, but it was more a partnership kind of a hospital. So they had multiple hospitals. And that was up in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was beautiful. Beautiful full service animal hospital. I worked at Animal Hospital of Terra Vita. And then the company sold it to an individual, which means I lost my job and had to work at one of their other hospitals. And that kind of was an interesting thing. And my options, when they presented my options of going to another hospital and my hours, it wasn't very good. So I decided to look for another job, and I went to another job in Scottsdale at Saguaro Animal Hospital, and learned a lot there. I learned a lot about ultrasound when I was there, and that was all these hospitals were like high volume, like you saw patients like crazy. And I kind of had a falling out and quit that job because management was a little shady. And the straw that broke the camel's back was when the manager told me that that the most important thing for me was my job and my family came second. And as a single mom with 4 kids, I said, I don't think so. I work my ass off and my family comes first, and I work for my family. My family doesn't work for me. So I quit that job because I didn't like that attitude that they were taking with me. So I moved on, and I moved on to a position with a mobile unit, a mobile animal hospital, where I drove a van that was equipped to do medicine and surgery and testing. Like we had a microscope in there to look under the microscope, and we had an anesthetic machine and oxygen tanks, and we did IV fluids. And so I drove this van around for Aaron's Ark mobile veterinary clinic and saw patients all over Scottsdale and Phoenix. That was an interesting experience. And I had a run in with that owner. It was this dude that, let's see, what did he say? He said that he had to pay more for the insurance for the van because of my record, my auto insurance record. And I was like, well, that's not my problem. I'm a subcontractor. that's your problem with your insurance. And he's like, well, no, you got to pay for it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm leaving. Like, I'm a subcontractor, not your employee. So then I went to work for Banfield, and that was interesting. So I was with Banfield for like a decade, and I became a mentor to the younger vets coming in, and this was like big time corporate. But when I first joined them, it was not corporate. It was like it was owned by one dude. It was multiple practices, but it was owned by one guy, and he was awesome. Like when you signed on, they sent you to his home in Utah. All the new vets would go to his home in Utah, and they'd have these big dinners, and it was like a family. And after about two couple years of working like that, he sold to a corporation. And that was the demise of that company. It just kept going down and down and down. But I managed to hang on for about a decade, and tried to navigate the waters of corporate medicine. And I'm just too much of a renegade for corporate medicine. And I practice excellent medicine and surgery, and take care of my clients and take care of the little pets in my care, and they're my priorities. And I had a run in with the medical director at the time, um, when I had a dog under anesthesia getting ready to do surgery, and he wanted to meet with me and wanted me to come out and go to a meeting room with him and have a meeting while the dog was on the table under anesthesia. And I said, no, I got to take care of the surgery, the animal first before I can meet with you. And that really pissed him off. But I didn't care because I cared about my patient. So that was one of the things that they didn't like about me. Like, I did my own thing and I did what I thought was right. And they also didn't like that I wouldn't push their flea and tick shit, because I saw it causing all the side effects in dogs and cats with the pesticides, and I wasn't gonna push all that. I brought in enough income for those hospitals doing what was right for the patients and the clients. I didn't have to do that, the selling part. So I was like, I'm not going to be a salesperson for your products. And a couple of the guys, the medical director and the supervisor, they took me out to lunch one time and basically sat there and told me that I needed to sell their products. And I was like, yeah, thanks for lunch. No. So they found a way to fire me. They figured out, started figuring out ways to fire me, and start a paper trail because they didn't like my attitude, which was focused on the client and the patient. And that's all right if they don't like my attitude, because I wasn't going to do what they're doing now, and they're basically running themselves into the ground. So, so they found a way to fire me, and I got fired. It was traumatic, but I took my box of stuff out to the car, and after I cried a little bit, I made a phone call and I said, "Hey, I need a job," and I got picked up by another Banfield that was privately owned. It was owned by a private doctor. So I got fired from one Banfield, and the next one down the street picked me up because they knew I was a good doctor. Yeah. So I had a job the next day after that. And that job was interesting. That was where was that? That was in Avondale. That was a really great hospital. Um, uh, I think that was where. I was accused of caring too much about the staff. The supervisors and the medical director didn't like that I cared too much about the staff. When I would do all these pep talks and meetings, and I would post quotes on the board, and I really cared about all the techs and the receptionists, and we were a big family, and things rolled wonderful. But the higher ups didn't like that I did that, and I have no idea why, because I feel like that's what every practice should do, and that's what the leaders should do in the practice, is be a good role model and take care of the clients, the patients, and your support staff. And to this day, a lot of the support staff that I worked with at that hospital still works with me, because I have a house call vet tech company, and all the vet techs that I knew from that hospital work for me in my house call business. So it worked out for me. But that Banfield got gobbled up by the corporate. They changed all their rules and threw out all their contracts, and they're like, yeah, we're going to buy you back. You have to sell the hospital back to corporate. So that dude lost his practice, had to sell it back to corporate, and he got kind of cranky, and he got cranky with me, and I was like, oh, this is not good. And I was like, peace out. And they still to this day call me to come back, and I'm like, oh no, see ya. This guy was so mean to me. He told me that I made too much money. And dude, I was working on a commission. I was working on 100% commission, and I only made a fraction of what I brought in. And I'm like, how can you tell me I'm making too much money if I'm making only a percentage of what I bring in and you make the rest of it? Does that make sense? That does not make sense. So I don't know. I don't know why these guys think that they can treat other people like that, but they do, and they do all the time. And I've never felt like, it's because I'm a woman. I think these people are just, jerks. So I just keep going. I just keep hustling and keep going because I love what I do. So then what did I do? So then I did a bunch of emergency jobs when I left that hospital, and I'm like, peace out. I'm done with Banfield. You guys are just putting me through all kinds of emotional turmoil. Then I went and I worked for emergency hospitals because I know emergency medicine. I saw all the emergencies in regular practice, and we're trained on all kinds of medicine. So I went to work for all kinds of emergency hospitals as a subcontractor, not as an employee. So I would work up in Prescott, Arizona, which is northern Arizona, at the pet emergency hospital that one of my colleagues had just purchased, and she needed help. So I'd drive up there on the weekends and stay in the little apartment above the hospital, and then work at nights and sleep during the day, during the weekend, and see all the emergencies. And I'd also work in Phoenix at Pet Urgent Care, which just started at that time. That was around 2014, 15. I worked at Pet Urgent Care for them in Avondale, or it was Goodyear's in the West Valley. And then they moved to Phoenix, and then I moved to their new place. So I worked at Pet Urgent Care. And I also worked at the Blue Pearl hospitals. So there are Blue Pearl emergency hospitals all over the valley. And if they needed help, I would go help. Oh, you know what I don't have on my resume? That's interesting. I forgot all about it. Back when I first came to Phoenix, when I had my first job in Phoenix, I needed money. So I would work during the day at the hospital in Phoenix, and then I would moonlight at night at the emergency hospital. So I would be on call. So I'd work all day at the regular hospital, and I'd get a call from the emergency clinic at like 2 a.m, and they'd be, "Hey, Dr. Dragos, we're backed up. We need you to come in." And so I would get up out of bed, make a cup of coffee, throw on my scrubs, drive into the emergency hospital, triage all the patients that were waiting in the waiting room. So they'd get them all in rooms. I'd figure out what was going on. I'd pull up a treatment plan, get it okayed, and get the pet hospitalized and get it started treatment. And then, so I would see all these patients and get the whole lobby cleared out. And then I'd go home and go back to sleep. And then the technicians and the vet techs would take care of all the treatments. And there would be other vets in there that worked as employees, but I was just there to take up the slack. I forgot to put that on my resume. That was crazy that I worked during the day and then I would work at night and then I'd get up and go back to my day job. I don't know how I survived, because I must not have slept at all. I must have survived on freaking coffee back then. Let's see. So this was, we were in about 2016. Yep. And I was doing all the emergency stuff. And while I was doing all the emergency hospitals, when I was working at all the emergency hospitals, this is when I got into a car accident. And I got into the car accident actually while I was working for Banfield. I got rear-ended by a hit-and-run driver. And this gal rear-ended me, and it hurt my neck, and she swung up around me and took off. And I'm like, "Oh no, you are not doing that." And I chased her all the way down Union Hills Drive until it teed into Tatum, and she had to stop for the light, and I got her license plate and I called the police. So it was a hit and run driver, but she didn't get away with it. So I hurt my neck in that accident, and I was in so much pain. Oh my gosh. And pain medication wasn't helping, and insurance didn't cover anything. And I ended up getting insurance wouldn't cover an MRI. And I'm like, this is bullshit. So I went and paid cash for an MRI of my neck. And they're like, "Yeah, you got the neck of an 85-year-old. You're really arthritic. Your neck is a mess." And I'm like, gosh, no wonder I feel like this. And I was like, "Well, what can you do? What can you do?" And my doctor's like, "Nothing, just take some Tylenol." And I'm like, "Give me some prednisone or something. If I was a dog, I would put it on prednisone. At least, if not some other stuff." And dear me, I treat dogs better than I was treated with my neck injury. Gotta tell you this. So my doctor finally got tired of me calling over and over and over. And he's like, "Look, I got this friend who's an acupuncturist. Just go see him." And I'm like, "Cool, whatever. I'll do anything." I literally would do anything, as much pain as I was in. So I went to go see my MD's friend, the acupuncturist, and it was cash only. And he did a consultation with me, but he didn't treat me the first visit. And so he did this consultation, asked me all these questions, and then he had me come back. And knowing what I know now, this guy probably just took a weekend course and he was trying to figure out what the heck was wrong and what points to do. And he had to look it all up first. So he had me come back, and then he put he probably put like 4 or 6 needles in me and hooked me up to these electrodes and ran a current through the needles and did electroacupuncture on me. And after 3 treatments, like once a week for 3 weeks, I was pain free and have never had a problem again. And that put the bug in my head. And I'm like, holy cow, I bet I can do this for animals. I bet all those pets that were in such horrible pain and on 5 different pain meds and they still were in pain, I bet I can help them now. So while I was doing all the emergency work, I signed up for the veterinary acupuncture program through the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society. And so I would work at these hospitals, these ER hospitals. And then when, if I was there overnight and there was nothing coming in or there was big gaps, I would work on my homework for acupuncture. I'd be studying like crazy and reading and studying. And then I would leave for a week and fly out to the acupuncture course. So every month I would fly out to the acupuncture course and do the hands-on stuff. And this went on for almost a year while I was doing the emergency work. And then I got certified in acupuncture while I was, paying the bills, doing the emergency work. And that was the best decision of my life. And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten rear-ended by some gal at the community college in a Jeep. So I got certified, and my main emergency job, and I won't tell you which one it was, my check started bouncing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm not going to keep a job my paychecks are bouncing. So I had just become certified in acupuncture, and I'm like, well, I got to do it. I'm going to have to take that leap of faith. So I rented a little tiny, like 250 square foot office space, and I started my business. I started veterinary acupuncture and alternative medicine. I started my little business, and I had one patient a month for the first few months, but that paid the rent. And within 2 years, that practice got so busy that I had to let all the emergency and conventional stuff go and just focus on my business, just focus on my veterinary acupuncture and alternative medicine business that I started just in a thought overnight, that I was like, I can't keep working for some place that's not going to pay me. So I started my business, and within 2 years it was busy, and I had more business than I could handle. I was working 7 days a week because I had so much business. I was working on Saturdays and Sundays too. I was working late in the evening, and that was going crazy. And then I needed a bigger office space because I was so busy. So I moved into a bigger office in the same little strip mall. And then they raised my rent. So I moved up the street to another, a bigger suite, and continued seeing patients like crazy. And then I started traveling more. So I was doing a lot of traveling and teaching. And some of the things that I was doing as far as teaching was for the acupuncture program, the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society. I was teaching the other vets going through that acupuncture program. I was teaching them the points. So in the labs where we have a live dog or a live horse, I would be teaching them where the acupuncture points were on the actual animals. So I was doing a lot of teaching and a lot of traveling. So I actually, when my lease ended with veterinary acupuncture and alternative medicine, I moved that into my house, and now I work out of my home office, which I'm really happy with, because now I know why everybody likes to work from home, because it's freaking awesome. so I continue to do a lot of teaching, and that may be a good place to go into some of these other, like the professional associations kind of stuff from my resume. So I've taught for the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society, and then I also help facilitate um, a commercial dog food called Canine Ancestral Diet. And actually, one of my clients referred the company to me to help them with the food. And it was a nice food, but I was like, there's a few improvements I would make. I'd change out a few things. So I helped them reformulate their food, and it's an awesome food. It's available now. It's called Canine Ancestral Diet. And then shortly after that, I was asked to be the treasurer of the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society. So I joined that board as treasurer, and I just finished 6 years as treasurer of the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society, which is a great group for veterinary acupuncturists. And I have moved into a different position that I was offered. Actually, I've been in this next position, I think, 2 years now. As I started as vice president of the American College of Veterinary Botanical Medicine, and now I've moved into president-elect, and I'll be headed into president of the American College of Veterinary Botanical Medicine. And this is basically an organization that that is all the top-notch veterinary herbalists internationally, but not internationally because it's the American College, so nationally. So all the top-notch certified herbalists, that are researching and teaching and lecturing and authors of the books, it's all these fabulous people that are the leaders in veterinary herbal medicine. So it's a really awesome organization. So, and I was asked to be the vice president a few years ago, and I've just kind of gone up the ladder to president this year because I'm certified in Chinese herbal medicine, and I use herbs. Basically, I have used herbs with every patient, or just about every patient that it was indicated for when I was doing acupuncture. So I have a lot of education and experience with herbs. So I was asked to be on that board. And then after I was certified in herbal medicine and was doing that, I actually felt like I needed more tools in my toolbox. So I went to veterinary chiropractic school and learned how to do chiropractic on small animals, not horses, because that was a separate program where I took this training. So I trained down in Florida, and I would fly down there. I think it was like a long weekend every month. So some of it was online, but really you have to learn in person to do chiropractic. It's not something you can learn online. So I would travel, and I learned chiropractic and got certified in chiropractic, and then incorporated that into the body work that I do with the acupuncture. And then also do herbs with my patients. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff. And so now, today, I still have my veterinary acupuncture and alternative medicine business. It's now in my house. I actually had my garage remodeled, and into an office. So my garage is now enclosed as part of the house, and it has a separate entrance, and that's my clinic. But it's also where I process herbs. So one of the things I do as an herbalist is I make herbal tinctures. So I literally make them. I take the dried herbs and ferment them in alcohol and water, and then strain it out and make tinctures of individual herbs. And I probably have about 400 different herbs marinating on the shelves in there. And then I combine the herbs into formulas, and I make custom formulas, and I make classic formulas. So herbal medicine, especially Chinese herbal medicine, there are classic herbal formulas going, dating back hundreds or even thousands of years that we know the recipes to. And so I have the recipes for all these formulas, and I put them together and use those as the medicine that I dispense to my patients. And I really enjoy doing that. And now I've decided that I want to do more traveling, and so I've scaled back my in-person practice. So I stopped taking new patients, and I'm just taking care of all the patients I currently have. And I'm doing a lot of traveling, and that's one of the reasons I had to update my resume, but I'll go through that on a later video. But now I'm doing telemedicine, and I feel like I can reach more people with telemedicine, because granted, you can't do acupuncture, through a Zoom, but when I know what's going on with the pet, I can teach pet parents to do acupressure, where you just put pressure on an acupuncture point. So I'll teach them where the acupuncture point is that I think the pet would need, and then I teach them other things to do, or at least find them resources or referrals in their area, because I'm consulting with pet parents literally all over the world. So I hear from people in Europe, Canada, Mexico. So I'm all over the United States. So I do consults for chronic diseases in pets, mostly dogs and cats. But I've done a consult for a lemur. A lemur with mammary cancer. That was an interesting one. So I do consults for pets online via Zoom with telemedicine, and I primarily will prescribe herbs and supplements and diet therapy. And the way I do the consults is someone would request a consult and schedule their day and time. And then I send them an email with the intake forms and have them send me the records, the medical records, and take a picture of the pet and a picture of the pet's tongue, because I do tongue diagnosis, which is a Chinese veterinary medical diagnostic procedure to figure out what the pattern diagnosis is. So with my consults, theoretically, I already have the Western diagnosis from the medical records, and I'm serving as a second opinion or a holistic opinion, where I look at the pet, I look at the whole pet. I look at the emotional stuff, lifestyle like diet and exercise, and I look at all the other medical problems that they've had in the past in the records, and I'll come up with a pattern diagnosis, which is a traditional Chinese veterinary medicine way of making a diagnosis. And when you come up with a pattern diagnosis, this helps figure out what herbal formulas you need to help the patient or the pet get back into homeostasis and feel better. And with this kind of treatment, you can actually resolve problems. So you're not just putting Band-Aids on them with pharmaceuticals. you're actually taking care of the problem and the underlying or root causes and bringing the body back into balance and reversing problems, or at least making them a lot better. And because it takes a while to reverse problems, but it can be possible when you're looking at the whole pet. So I just find this so interesting and fun to figure out what's going on with the pet at a deeper level, and to be able to recommend treatments that are not only effective but extremely gentle. They're powerful, but they're gentle, and they don't have side effects for the most part. And the side effects they have are usually helpful side effects. Like a lot of the herbs, take care of the issue, but also protect the liver. Or they, if someone is doing, for example, like a patient with cancer, if they're doing chemo and radiation, you can use the herbal supplements to help treat the patient, but also to mitigate the side effects of the chemotherapy and to make the chemotherapy and radiation work better. So those are side effects. Those are the good side effects of herbs. They actually augment the conventional treatments. So it's just absolutely amazing. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm headed to North Carolina next week to go to an herbal apprenticeship. And it's actually a program that I started 2 years ago, and I missed one of the sessions. So I'm doing a makeup session the first week of November, and going to Duck, North Carolina, to Purple Moon Herbal Studies to finish my, it's a Western herbal apprenticeship, and it's really fun. Like we get to, we learn about herbs and we learn about herbal formulas, but we don't just do like the book learning and the lectures. What I really like about this is we actually see the herb, meaning we touch it, we feel it, we smell it, we taste it in all its different forms, whether it's the fresh plant that we've picked, or the dried herb, or a tincture made from the herb, and then we learn how to do other things. And I think we're learning how to make tinctures, which I kind of already know because I make tinctures, but I believe that Dr. Lori Doman teaches it differently. I think she uses the folk method, which is different than the scientific method of making herbal tinctures that I use. So I'm really curious to learn, how she's doing it. And I always love learning because I feel like when I learn all this different stuff and I go to all these meetings and I go to seminars and I just take it all in and then kind of tweak it and make it my own. And I think that's what holistic vets do. Is there's so much out there now that's available to learn as a veterinarian to treat our patients. And so we go out there and we learn all these different things, and then we bring it in and we treat our patients all a little differently depending on what tools we have in our toolbox. And I'm at the point where I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox, and I just need to concentrate on using those. But it's so, it's kind of like squirrel. You see these shiny objects, and you're like, "Ooh, I want to go learn that." And so I still attend webinars and seminars to learn new things and keep up on things. And then I also go to conferences for conventional medicine because I think it's important to keep up on that, because I also consult on the conventional part of disease. So when I see, when I have a pet I do a consult for and I look at their records, I help the pet parent understand the conventional part of the disease or the illness or whatever's going on. It may even be behavioral. I help them understand conventionally what's going on and what their options are conventionally. And then I give them my opinion on, okay, well, these are the conventional tests that haven't been run yet, and I probably would run them. And so I'll let them know what's available conventionally as well as holistically. So I really do a well-rounded consultation and help people understand what's going on with their pet and why it's going on, and maybe what the underlying causes were, and then how to fix it, how to figure out, exactly the steps to remedy the problem and get the pet living a nice, healthy life. Wow. I don't know if I even told you all the stuff I do, but I've been a vet for 34 years and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't do anything else. So hopefully my rambling was, you got some interesting background on me. I've had a tumultuous conventional career, but I would say as soon as I decided to study and transition to holistic medicine, it was a big shift in my life. Like, my stress level went down tremendously when I learned how to care for pets holistically. Then I also learned how to care for myself holistically, because it might not be it may be a surprise to people, but veterinarians don't take care of themselves. They work themselves to the bone. So it was nice to learn how to take care of pets gently and to take care of myself gently. So my stress level went way down, and I'm definitely happier with how I practice and how my life is going. And I'm sure it'll continue to go well now that I'm at a better space, dealing with pets on a holistic level. I really, really enjoy it. So thank you for listening if you made it to the end. And I'll probably do another video about why I had to update my resume. We'll see. It's a surprise. And the other thing that I'm doing with telehealth is I'm also doing I'm advocating for pets with valley fever. I'm bringing awareness to the community about valley fever, which is a fungal disease in the Southwest United States that's spreading, and it's a big problem. And you may have seen my other YouTube videos about my journey with valley fever, because not only do I treat pets, and I've treated pets for over 30 years with valley fever, and now I treat them integratively with both holistic medicine and conventional medicine. But I had valley fever twice. And so I have extremely personal experience with valley fever, and most, let's say, three or four of my pets have had valley fever. It's common, and I want to bring awareness about valley fever because it happens in people, it happens in pets. It's in the Southwest United States, but it's spreading north and it's spreading east because of global warming and climate change. And the fungal infections are really hard to treat. So if you check out my Canine Valley Fever Guide at caninevalleyfeverguide.com, you can get all kinds of information from that. And I have a really cool online program. If your dog happens to get valley fever, this walks you through all the things you can do, both conventional and holistic, for your dog with valley fever. And that program is called rescueyourdogfromvalleyfever.com. So just wanted to let you know what I've been up to, as far as with my consultations and my Valley Fever program. And thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again.